Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Galini.
Is that better, Dr. Jeff?
Yeah, that's a lot better, Carl.
Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, are you doing good because of all the questions you're getting from our audience?
You know, I am actually just ecstatic. The questions have just been great. People have been asking for free samples and kind of engaging, their questions. Some of you guys have even given me some great show suggestions, which I'm going to work in. So it's been fun.
Yeah, keep them coming, too. Down on the bottom right-hand side of superhumanradio.com, you'll see the Ask the Scientists banner ad. Just go there, click it. If you have a topic suggestion, put it there. If you want to try Crealkaline, make sure you include your mailing address. Put it there. Yes, everybody can reach Dr. Jeff. And as I found out earlier today, he's answering everybody's emails, which is a great time commitment on his part. So please make sure that if you do request a sample, to include your address so he doesn't have to request that in a separate email. So anyway, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and thank goodness that when I was in high school, my dad encouraged me to take typing, so that always helps.
Boy, who knew computers were going to be popular back then, right?
No kidding,
I
haven't changed the keyboards, that is still like an old typewriter.
I can't keystroke worth a dang. I mean, I'm a pick and poke guy. It takes me forever.
Yeah, it does help. I mean, because, you can rattle away as fast as you can talk. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. So today we're going to be talking about something that apparently we've gotten some requests for follow-up by the audience. So you announced on one of the shows that you had eliminated all modern grain products from your diet today in an effort to become gluten-free. How long ago did you do that?
It was actually just about 60 days from today. And, as I was researching for the show, one of the things that I ended with was kind of the gluten challenge. Hey, if you have these symptoms, go off gluten for 60 days, write down all of your ailments, and see what happens after 60 days if any of those disappear. And then at that point, you want to start bringing things back in and see if those symptoms started. I got home that night thinking, man, I got half these symptoms. I'm going to do this.
And so what happened when you decided to eliminate gluten? How fast did you start to notice differences?
Almost the very next day, I didn't realize how much gluten that I was actually eating. As I've told you, I love bread. And usually the things that you have an intolerance to or might be allergic to are normally the things you crave or like. So probably the very next day, I noticed that my stomach bloat started to disappear. And within about 3 days, that bloated stomach disappeared. And, right off the bat, just from that bloat, I think my waist size dropped maybe an inch or two. So that was kind of one of the first things that I noticed. And then, after about a week, I'm sleeping better. My sleep was so interrupted. I would go to sleep tired and wake up and just be wide awake. I'm sleeping great. My fatigue, I'm not as tired all day long. And there was just a whole variety of things that I wrote down for myself that literally have almost 100% disappeared, which is, I didn't think they would, but it's pretty amazing.
It's funny. So when I was in Montana for the last live remote, we actually went out to dinner and had steak together. And when the girl brought bread, you and I both looked up at her and said, no, take that away. Remember?
I do. And at first my wife was kind of like, oh, you're being a little fanatic, And I said, no, I know what I'm doing. And, I literally have eliminated everything right down to all the hidden stuff, which we'll kind of re-talk about a little bit. But it does make a difference. And, my wife has seen that I've had more energy. I'm sleeping better. So she's actually kind of accommodating now on the fact that, Dr. Jeff does know what he's talking about.
Yeah, right? Isn't that funny? How's that work? So what are some of the hidden things that have gluten in them, Dr. Jeff? That a lot of people go, okay, I cut bread out, I cut pasta out, and I've cut out basically all modern wheat products, because there are some ancient grains out there that seem to be more tolerable, but we're talking about the everyday modern wheat products here. When you cut those out, that's not all of the gluten in your diet, is it?
No, it's not. A friend of mine on the Connoisseur Media 96.7, the zone here that we are with, he's got celiac disease. So every Wednesday, I'm out with him on a live remote that we do. So we've been talking about this, and this morning I was talking about the show, but I was telling him about some of the things that I discovered, these hidden things. It's interesting because 2014, the FDA kind of passed a new gluten law. But prior to that, people were saying wheat-free, and, we would assume that means gluten-free, but that does not mean gluten-free. But we both had an interesting side effect to Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. And I come to discover it, if it says modified food starch, that comes from wheat. And I was telling him about it. I thought, I've really been looking at these labels, and before I realized what modified food starch, I always thought that was cornstarch. I was having some barbecue, and my goodness, that night, that neurological, I was getting tired, and dizziness was kind of coming back. And I'm like, man, all I had was chicken, and I had potatoes and salad. And I thought the only thing different tonight was this barbecue sauce, and I loaded it up. And I went and looked, and I thought, you know what? It had to be that sauce. Well, come to know, he did the same thing, and he was talking about, man, that happened to me. I was having barbecue, and everything was gluten-free, and his bottle actually said gluten-free on it. So I was like, that's interesting, because it's not gluten-free.
You see, and that's because they're not really testing for gluten in these foods. They're just summarily assuming that it's gluten-free because it doesn't have whole wheat in it. That's really where it's coming from.
And that's what I've been finding is, there is a mark I haven't researched. It's saying certified gluten-free. I need to kind of look into that to see if there's actually some real certification. But, be careful at gluten-free because, food places are thinking, well, I'm not adding any flour. It's gluten-free, and they have no idea what some of the sources of these starches. But for most people, if you're not, you're thinking bread, okay, that's easy. Well, keep in mind that, all pastas and noodles, are all made with wheat. So those are going to contain gluten. Most all pastries, crackers, baked goods, cereal, granola, breakfast foods, breading.
Even our beloved oatmeal has some amount of gluten in it, albeit less gluten than the modern day conventional wheat grown, but still has some gluten in it.
It does, and at first I didn't realize that until I saw there was gluten-free oatmeal, and I was still getting a reaction from eating oatmeal. And again, I thought, oh, that's not wheat. But you got to really look into the sources. So even little things like, croutons. But then you got to be careful with all of these salad dressings, sauces, gravy, even beer contains gluten if you drink beer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But, all the things you wouldn't think of, there were just so many things. So you really got to get into label reading and then be careful. I'm really nervous now when I go out to dinner because, I don't get any salad dressings because I can't read the labels. So it's vinegar. And as you know, I didn't get the croutons on the salad. Right. And of course, the bread looked delicious, but we set it back because we knew we weren't going to eat it,
And you even commented after that meal that your one day you had gone to that same steakhouse with your wife, and when you left, you were all bloated. And she said, oh, maybe you can't tolerate beef any longer. But once you went to the steakhouse and didn't have the bread appetizer, you didn't get bloated anymore.
No, I would get terrible gas. And I thought, man, every time I have steak, but it would always be from that steakhouse. And yeah, I would, that was kind of my bread night, 4, 5, 6 of those delicious little
yeast rolls. Yeah, they're so good, right?
Yeah, but no, about an hour or two later, just terrible bloatingness, gas. So, most of these symptoms are, they seem harmless, but you got to really look at what is the long-term effect, what's really going on with your digestive system and your intestines. That's where all the problems really get down.
I'd like to contribute something else to this discussion. So, modern day wheat has been hybridized and modified to produce more gluten because industries love gluten. It makes bread products more fluffy and elastic-like and chewy. But also, modern day wheat, there is a challenge. When they harvest wheat, they have to pick when to harvest it when the majority of the crop is ripe, let's say, okay? And so they want to synchronize the crop so that when they harvest, the greatest amount is ready to be harvested. There's always some that isn't. Well, they use glyphosate to kill weeds. It's a herbicide, and actually it's an antibiotic. If you look at any of Monsanto's patents, it states that glyphosate is an antibiotic, antimicrobial. Well, what they do as of the past few years, Monsanto sent a memo out to all the farmers and said, hey, you want a better way to synchronize your crop? Spray the whole crop with glyphosate. Upon dying, it actually it matures right away, and you can harvest it. It's all ready to be harvested. So you synchronize the whole crop in one shot. Well, they're spraying glyphosate on wheat, especially obviously non-organic wheat, a couple days before they harvest it. Then they harvest it. I predict in the years to come, what we're going to find out is glyphosate disrupts the stomach to a degree that the inflammatory effects of gluten are even worse. Watch this come to the forefront.
I agree with you on that one. As I've said, something has been going on the last 10 years. I mean, you didn't hear about all this gluten intolerance, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, it's relatively a new phenomena. And, that glyphosate, I mean, it tears up your stomach. So, we don't really know if we're gluten intolerant or is it from that chemical, I mean, it's a combination, I think.
I do. I think that the word tolerant is a very important word in this discussion, because I think that for generations we have been able to tolerate wheat, and now we can't. And I think the reason we can't is the protective barrier of the stomach is being destroyed by the antibiotic effects of glyphosate. And over time, the body just can't tolerate the gluten because it's literally leaching into the bloodstream because it's getting right through the walls of the stomach, right through the lining of the intestines and getting into the body. And this is why you have this almost hungover feeling when you consume it. It gets into the bloodstream and it's basically poisoning you.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people, are always getting dizzy or being off balance, which is one of the things that I was feeling. That is from that. But I think also, like you said, the gluten levels are elevated, but, so many people are now being diagnosed with celiac disease. And it was interesting because, my wife, required me to go to the allergist, which I normally do once a year anyhow for seasonal allergies. So we got to talking about this whole gluten thing, and it was interesting because he said, no, there's no test for that. We can just assume. So I was telling him about, my experience in the show, and he was quite fascinated. I think he actually went and listened to the podcast. But you really can't go to a doctor and test to see if you're gluten intolerant. They can test for these diseases, but you've got to be on the gluten product in order for them to determine if you've got that. So I always thought they could just put a small amount on your skin, and if you break out from it, that means that you are allergic to it. I would think.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more Science for Humans. Stay tuned.
If you want to outlast, outmuscle, and outperform your competition with a high-powered, stimulant-free carbohydrate source that has zero sugars, you want Carbolin. Carbolin is the original high-performance fuel that will allow you to load your muscles with glycogen in minutes instead of hours. As a pre, intra, and post-training supplement, it will give you a hardness and fullness to your muscles like you've never felt before. As an endurance supplement, Carbolin has been proven to increase VO2 max by 2.8%. If you want fast absorption and sustained energy without bloating or cramping, get Carbolin. Go to AAEFX.com today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back. We're having a little technical difficulty, so please bear with us. We've been having a real hard time here trying to get Dr. Jeff's audio straightened out, and I think we're going to get it done right now, so sit tight. Okay. All right, so we were talking about gluten going into the break. How does somebody become gluten-free? Is it very hard to do?
You know, I didn't think it was hard, but that's kind of how we, when we were bodybuilding, it was more like a bodybuilding diet because we didn't eat, sauces and,
right.
It's and things. I mean, everything was very, very clean. But that has been one of the things as I've been talking to people about it because I've been, excited about how I've been feeling. People are like, man, that's so hard. I just can't give up that kind of stuff. So I think it's like anything, you've got to make some lifestyle changes to better your health. If you've got these symptoms, don't just think, I can live with that bloating all the time. That's what my friend did until it actually, damaged those small intestines where he wasn't absorbing nutrients, which then turns into that celiac disease, and it's irreversible. Now you are forced to go gluten-free because it could actually cause other dangerous items. So I think it's just kind of a lifestyle change. Somebody asked me the other night, well, where am I going to get my carbohydrates from if I can't get from wheat? Breads. And
sweet potatoes, rice. I mean, my God, there's so many out there.
There is. And, even going into the health food store, you got to be careful because some of the gluten-free stuff isn't very healthy. I notice all the breads are filled with, xanthium gums and all these things to hold it together. But things like, corn tortillas instead of wheat tortillas are a good replacement. But really look at, for most people, I think if you eliminate breads, if you're having some symptoms, that's probably a good place to start because that's probably, I would guess, 80% of your gluten intake is coming from, breads and such.
I'm not fond of corn for a few reasons. Number one, corn is what they use to put fat on cows. The last 6 months of a cow's life, they put him on corn, and he gains 3 pounds of fat a day. And if that tells us anything, is that too much corn will make you store fat, number one. Number two, corn is one of the highly genetically modified foods to accept glyphosate, so they slather hundreds of pounds of glyphosate on corn crops. Personally, there's people out there who do well with corn. God bless you, keep on trucking. But if you're somebody who doesn't like corn, we now have coconut flour. We now have almond flour. We have quinoa. We have spelt, which is proving to be an ancient 8,000-year-old grain that, thank God, commercial production has ignored because it has such minuscule amounts of gluten in it, it doesn't make good bread.
Yeah, correct. And, the rice flours are really good.
Yeah, rice flour, yeah.
And again, I've kind of gone the organic route too, just because, I don't want to eat, I don't eat a lot of corn, but at least that it is gluten-free.
Yes.
It is, a once in a while thing. But I thought the pastas were delicious. I didn't notice any different. Now my wife, she didn't like it, but she's a little more picky than me when it comes to, what she thinks is good tasting. But to me, I didn't notice any difference. I thought it actually just tasted better,
Well, and let's remember, as a professional bodybuilder, you learned to have discipline over desire and flavor because you looked at food as fuel. It was gas to put in the tank to build more muscle and get leaner and ripped. So you've already acquired the ability to flip that switch and say, I don't care if it doesn't taste great. It's doing what I need it to do for me.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to look at, when we're doing this is, you don't have to put tons of condiments, dressings and things. That's part of that lifestyle change. But the other thing that I was going to mention is I also lost about 6 or 7% body fat.
Wow.
And I haven't changed my diet as far as I didn't decrease. Actually, I'm probably eating more foods because I'm more hungry now. When you're bloated, sometimes you just can't eat. It's hard to eat.
Right.
But I'm actually, my strength has gone up. So I even feel like I'm looking better as far as my physique, and I'm not training any harder. I'm not taking any different supplements. I'm not doing anything. So I think now things are actually being absorbed better. where before probably was wasting a lot of the nutrients, wasn't even quite working too well,
Now, do you think you'll be able to stay gluten-free, or do you think that this is something that at some point in time it's going to kind of be like, well, I guess I can have a little of this, a little bit of that. Like once the total inflammation within the gut is gone and you feel that whatever has developed over years is gone, will you start to reintroduce some gluten products?
That was my original idea was, boy, I don't want to be gluten-free because I like breads. Now that I'm 60 days, they say it takes 30 days to develop a new habit, new lifestyle. I really don't have any desire to add those back because I'm feeling better. My training is better. My focus is better. And I thought, I don't even want to waste time seeing, okay, what is it? I know that it has to do with gluten, and I'm pretty happy eliminating gluten. So I think I'm just going to keep it out. I'm not even going to have a cheat day or try it.
I think that, again, the bodybuilding diet, the diet of yesteryear, the diet that people like Vince Gironda and the early bodybuilders like Jeff was back in California back in the day, they had the secret. They did it to build muscle and stay lean, but ultimately they were also super healthy as a result of that diet.
Yeah, and I think that's what has, lost with the word diet. We all think, okay, I got to go on a diet, where diet meant what you ate, what your intake was. And that's really what I got to thinking is, man, we were healthier, and bodybuilders back then, did it for health. It wasn't to be unhealthy, as it is today. So again, I think it's not very difficult, but again, if you are having a lot of these symptoms, fatigue, bloating, gas, migraine headaches, all the things that, there probably is some drug for, I would recommend doing the 60-day gluten-free. Now, you don't have to be like me and decide to stay completely off all gluten. The secret is then to reintroduce things and see if these symptoms come back. Maybe you can have salad dressings. Maybe you can eat certain cereals. Maybe you can eat bread. Maybe you just have to do it in moderations, but you're never going to know if you don't give it a try. And it's not that difficult because it's not like we're restricting the amount of calories or anything.
Great obvious information here. Great and great insight by you doing this yourself. Obviously, we're also asking people out there who are trying to be gluten-free to send us information. Go to superhumanradio.com and in the Ask a Scientist banner ad down on the bottom right-hand side, send Dr. Jeff an email. Did you take his challenge? Have you tried to cut gluten out of your diet? What challenges are you finding? What are you noticing about your body? I got to tell you, with allergies, in for a penny, in for a pound. If you don't cut it out completely, you won't see any changes, because even minuscule amounts of gluten will cause problems if you've already developed allergic reactions to it.
Absolutely.
Now, if you haven't, you're fine, but if you have, that's the issue.
So go completely gluten-free, write down all your ailments before you start, no matter how minuscule, and then monitor those. Watch what happens. Even my chronic back pain from all my years of lifting, that disappeared.
Really?
It did. And, inflammation is a big part of gluten. But, yeah, my back pain, I'm actually thinking about starting to squat again. As I told you.
Because you were squatting 500 and you said that your back started bothering you, so you stopped.
I did. And, the doctor said, oh, it's just old age, degeneration. And I'm thinking, no, there's something else going on here. I know my body. It was just an inflammation that I now believe was from gluten. So
Wow.
Amazing. Next time you come out here, we'll have a little squat workout, huh?
Oh, no. You're not going to put me through that squat workout. I've seen you squat. You still hold some world records in powerlifting, don't you?
Not world records, but they probably got broken. My longtime high school squat record back from 1977 was 640 pounds. And some young studly kid, I think, broke it back in the 90s finally after 20-some years.
Dr. Jeff, thanks for being on today, brother.
Thank you, man. Take care.